Good morning and welcome to the Iron County Fair Ag Barn interviews. I am your host, McKennan Hansen. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to have a longtime friend and producer in Iron County, David Bosshardt, in interview today. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great.
Good. So the interviews that we've done prior and the interviews that we're going to be doing today are really just focused on the importance of ag in Iron County and kind of the stories behind the passion. So give us a brief history of why you're so passionate about ag in the Burro Valley.
I'm passionate about ag in the Burro Valley. I grew up out there. I guess that's part of the reason I'm passionate. I know the country. I raised my family there. I was raised there. It's just a beautiful place to be. I've had people, Parowan's beautiful. I love Parowan. I don't mind Cedar, but Burro we're isolated. Where we live, we don't have neighbors. The nearest neighbor's 2 miles away. His house, I can look out my front window and see one of my pivots perfectly, and I can look out the back door and see another one. It's just a beautiful view of seeing your own farm out of your house window. And I'm just passionate to keep ag going because it's important to not only the county, the state, and the nation. It's important to the world. We feed the world. We don't feed Iron County. We feed the world, and that's what people need to understand. It's a global. Agriculture is a global industry anymore. We export, we import, and if we're not feeding people. I figured, I don't remember when my grandpa farmed how many people in America still farm, but now we're down to 2 out of every 100 that do have anything to do with agriculture at all. And it's like, what do they do? We go to work so they can eat.
2% of the nation's population feeds 98% of it. That's a huge disparity.
Yes, but to love just going out and being in the environment, being in the field, being part of nature.
One would say you're almost closer to the universe or a spiritual connection through that?
Well, maybe so. I don't know. I get a lot of spiritual promptings that I just get things come to my head.
Well, and it's really of benefit too, because not only are you watching your own crops grow, you're also dedicated to your neighbors, making sure that they stay in production, because without the Burro Valley, most of our dairies don't get any hay.
Yeah.
And I mean nationwide, most of our dairies, because we export out of the state of Utah and import into the state of California.
Yes.
Most of the dairy hay that's utilized in those dairies.
Yes, we do.
With raising your family around agriculture and specifically in the hay production, what life skills have you seen come to fruition from when they were early teens to now adulthood?
They've learned how to work. They know what a good job is. They know how to put in a day's work and make it work. They know, I've taught them how to sell hay, whether it's ready to break, ready to bale. When it's time to cut, I've tried to teach them that, so I'm passing it on to them, so when I'm not here, they still can take care of things. They can still farm. It's a learned skill that takes years to learn how that hay feels when it's to that point. Because we use natural dew to bale with, and so I've got to be out there as soon as I think it's going to start coming in and start checking it, so I know when we need to fire up those tractors and go to work. And it's just something I've learned over the years. My dad taught me some, but it's something I've developed myself a little bit more.
So one would say that you're always learning regardless of the industry that you're in, correct?
You're always learning. You got to learn techniques that, whether you're farming or what you're doing, you're learning. If you're not learning, if you don't learn something, it's a waste of day as far as I'm concerned, because nobody knows everything.
Oh, how dare us not know everything.
You know?
Well, and I want to point out too that don't you have a mechanics degree from the USU?
Yes, I have a ag mechanics degree from Utah State University. I spent 2 years in Logan going to school. Some of the best learning experiences I could have in my life, other than on my own farm.
Right, but it goes to show that it's not just, a farmer's way. You're pushing towards education and betterment and making sure that not only your family, your community, your industry is farming better for the future generations.
Yes, and I fix most of my own equipment just because I can, and it's a reliable source to know so that I can use that money that I would have spent on repairs somewhere else.
Benefiting your community and spending
it on other stuff. I mean, we try to buy local as much as we can. We look at that, and we try to sell local as much as we can. We've exported out of the United States, but usually not. We try to sell into the United States as much as we can sell into the United States.
Well, and it's incredible to hear the passion as well, because you want to keep the money and the sources local to the best degree possible. You're not trying to outsource the things that you consume into your house. You're trying to support other farmers and producers in some way into your own household, which is critical for any economic activity in any area of the world.
Yes, it is. And you figure out how many, I don't know how many dollars we bring into the county. I didn't look that up to see how many dollars alfalfa brings into Iron County, but it's a lot of money.
Well, and
all spent, most of it's spent in Iron County.
Well, and as I'm reading, so in the Ag Barn at the Iron County Fair, we do have the We Love Iron County Agriculture banner done from a 2017 census. And I bring this up because it's very relevant for what production brings into. Crop production is over $54 million in just Iron County.
Yes.
Right? And that's in the crop production. Livestock production is a different figure. But in a crop production such as alfalfa in your farm, it's critical because it brings, I would say that every dollar that you spend, it turns $7 to $10 in economic activity, whether that's the groceries that your household consumes, or whether that's the clothing that you buy. You have fuels, you have mechanics, you have cars, you have dealerships that all support each other almost, kind of like a little village.
We do. We support each other, and if we don't, if we have to bring those dollars in, like I said, they're spent in the county, so I'm supporting other people working. They're not farming, but they still work for agriculture.
Right. Insurance. I work for, as I'm an insurance agent, I work for agriculture, and I make sure that, the different things, when you guys have bad days, it's not a bad year type of idea.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show that all agriculture is the key or a key to a couple of key features that every county needs to be self-sufficient.
Yes.
With that, the different aspects of hay production, for our listeners, most people think alfalfa is just consumed by a cow or a horse or, another animal. What other things are derived from hay?
Well, there's people that make tea from it. I know a lady that actually picked my hay growing and made tea.
Alfalfa tea.
Alfalfa tea.
I wonder what medicinal properties are in that.
You can go in the grocery store, you can buy alfalfa sprouts. That is a whole different crop grown that people don't even, but that is alfalfa that we could actually have planted and grew a crop on the top. And so the alfalfa sprouts are eating the roots off a young alfalfa seed.
Interesting.
I don't know if people realize what they're actually eating when they pick that up off the grocery store shelf, but it's in the grocery stores.
It's alfalfa sprouts. Like in the produce section,
In
it's
the
just
produce,
sprouts. Those are
yes.
alfalfa sprouts.
Uh-huh.
Wow, light bulb. I've eaten sprouts for years, and I literally just
You
realized that.
realize that yourself.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Well, and isn't it true that of everything that we touch throughout a day, not everything, but 2 out of the 3 things that we touch really stem back and go to alfalfa?
Well, this goes back to some sort of feed.
Okay.
Because something has to feed that animal. Something has to feed that bee. Something has to feed whatever it is to grow. We have to eat food. Animals have to eat food. And whether they're eating alfalfa, they're eating grain, they're eating corn, or whatever they're eating, they still have to eat. Bugs have to eat.
So you're saying a cow can't produce milk if it eats a water bottle?
Nope, it can produce milk if it uses water bottle. It has to have, I gave you the statistics, I think it was 10 pounds of forage a day
Yes,
per
gallon of milk.
per gallon of milk. Yeah, I couldn't remember what he's told me, but yeah.
You're good.
But that if you think about when you go to the store and buy that gallon of milk, that was 10 pounds of forage
For just that 1 gallon
for
of
that
milk.
1 gallon of milk. And what did you say, it was 2 gallons of water to produce that 1 gallon of milk?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
so you have to have an abundant source per se of water for animals and different things so that they can produce the requirements that, society has put on them almost.
Yeah. I mean, we need water, animals need water, everything needs water. If you go around your yard in a dry part of the year, right now wouldn't work very good, but if you got a hose leaking or a tap leaking, you got bees around it, you got spiders around it. There's stuff there trying to get to that water source because that's what they need.
Right.
And the day like this, they can get about anywhere they're at, so they don't need to go hunt for it. But
Right.
I've had, in fact, there was a guy yesterday that I was talking to, and the first time he knew there was bees by his alfalfa field is there was a whole bunch of bees where he needed to put the hose to hook up his sprinkler.
Oh, goodness.
And he had no idea where they came from or whose they were. He does now, they're good friends, but at that point in time in his life, he had no idea. He's like, what the heck are these doing here?
Ah,
And so he did find out who owned them when they come in, but that they were after that water source.
right. Well, and it's really interesting because you also bring up the synergy that's created among different types of producers, whether that's the cattle producers and hay producers or the beekeepers and the hay and the cows and the goats and the sheep, and everybody is a big family that also ripples out per se into society. There's 2% of producers in the United States that feed the rest of the 98, and what other products and requirements that we're putting on this 2%, at some point the 2% has to expand to meet the demand, or I would say that it would go away forever, which is also not something that we want.
Well, and not a lot of it. We're actually shrinking in size. We are just better at producing
Higher quality.
more on less.
Okay.
So, yeah, when my grandpa farmed 3-ton alfalfa, probably an average. What was the sign over there says 4.5 now?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're feeding more with less.
Which is,
The genetics have changed. We understand chemicals better through data that we kept. We understand what seed we need to use to actually produce better alfalfa with
well, and that
less
brings
ground.
up another really good point, too, is that you're constantly learning and we've talked about the education components of this, but you're seeking to always improve as well.
Yeah.
It's not just a one-size-fits-all. You want to know what you're yielding and what you're putting on that acreage to make sure that you're getting the volumes, in a positive manner rather than in the negative, so that you
Yes.
can correct those different behaviors.
Yeah, we're learning a lot and keeping the data. We've been starting last year, we've started taking our own hay samples, so we know what field does what. Because if a broker will come in, he'll check the whole barn or that one crop, where we decide we want to know per field. And we've learned that different fields will produce different qualities of hay with the same type of seed.
Even just the field matters.
Just the field matters, 'cause we go from clay to legume to sand. We have 3 different soil types that we farm on.
Oh, goodness.
And so we have to learn which field we have to manage. We have to manage each field differently, and sometimes you have to manage different areas of the field differently, just because of how that reacts.
Dave, we could talk here all day about the different aspects of that, because it's truly fascinating, and it almost goes to speak that I'll take this into a city aspect, right?
Yes.
There's all different districts within the city, and there's different neighborhoods within districts, and they all need different attention.
Yep.
And different, different activities. And so it really goes to show that production and agriculture can be tied and related to everything from kindergarten to, into your 80s and 90s.
Yep. I mean, and think about where you live in Cedar compared to Cedar Valley, what the soil difference is.
Oh, I'm on rock bed.
Yeah.
Bedrock?
Bedrock, whatever you want to call it.
Clearly, I'm an ag major.
I mean, there's different soils in different neighborhoods. And to say, I can grow this plant in my yard or my garden, why can't you? Well, because you don't have what it needs. And that's the way agriculture products came. That's why alfalfa is a big producer in Iron County and the state of Utah. This is a high desert, and high desert grows good quality alfalfa.
Right.
Because it grows lower. You go down to Arizona, to Phoenix, they grow alfalfa. There's places they cut 12 months out of the year in the United States, but their summer hay is not high quality.
Wow.
Because it grows way too fast. When you get up in the high desert, it grows slow, and that's why they want this high desert hay, is because it's high in protein, it's high in quality for what that milk cow needs to produce that milk.
Dave, you have been such a waterfall of information. Thank you so much for joining us in the Ag Barn at the Iron County Fair. I appreciate your time and attentiveness to this and taking it out of your schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you.